Examine the contribution of anthropologists in the interpretation of symbols. Contribution of anthropologists. In the interpretation of symbols. Basically, what is a symbol? Tell me first, what is the difference between a symbol and a sign? Symbol and sign.
So symbol can be anything, activities or relationships can be anything.
That's true. Symbol can be an activity. But sign also can be an activity like this. Come. That's
But
an activity.
symbol is related to culture. I mean,
Symbol
it
is?
symbol is related to culture. It has its own association.
Okay. So what does it mean?
There is a significance attached to it.
What do you mean to say sign is not attached? For example, something like this. Near transmitter. It is not significant.
Symbol is, I mean, it's society based where we are interpreting. Sign can be universal.
Sign can be universal. But can't societies develop their own signs then?
They can.
Example, red, green, yellow. Are they universal? We discussed they are not universal. Are they signs or symbols?
Signs.
Signs. Okay. The difference between sign and symbol is that symbol has to be interpreted. There can be subjectivity in interpretation. Whereas a sign is like a word. Sign or a signal are unambiguous. Whereas a symbol has to be culturally interpreted. One can't make out what the symbol is for unless we know the culture. Sign also may be like that, but sign is about simple and accepted sign. Accepted. It's like language, but symbol needs to be interpreted. There is cultural meaning to it. Cultural meaning to it. Okay. So, study of culture through symbols is symbolism. Study of culture through symbols. And what do these symbols stand for? Okay. Now tell me some of the symbols that I talk about. Tali around woman's neck. Tell me, what all does it symbolize? What all does it say about a woman?
She is married.
She is married. That's true. Okay. Then what does it mean?
It means that no man should, have see her as an opportunity. And
We are off the limits. Okay. So certain expected behavior. It means so many things are communicated simply through this. But then that is communicated only when one knows the culture. Otherwise, nothing to suggest that Thali means married and married means all these things. So it says that she cannot actively look around for somebody, others can't actively look for her. Already married, she may have children, and you can ask her, do you have children? If there is no Thali, maybe you can't ask, do you have children? Are you married? No. Do you have children? No. Okay. So, so questions, companionship, mate selection, behavior, so many things. So many things are communicated simply through this, which means it is communicating many aspects of culture, which making it predictable. And then coherence. Don't try for this woman. Okay, there are many issues if you want to try. Okay, so all this provides coherence. So something has been done. Now she's a married woman. Married woman status is different from unmarried woman. Married women are expected to behave in a particular way, unmarried in a different way. So what is the ceremony by which she finally has this marriage, Tali? Marriage, you can say, is a ceremony or ritual. And it consists of certain things. For example, how many steps they should make around fire during marriage?
7.
7 steps. And certain promises. They're all rituals. So a person who was so completely unfamiliar just before marriage becomes the most important person after marriage. Because wedding took place. So an unmarried person becomes a married person. Status changes. She becomes a daughter-in-law. Previously, she was not daughter-in-law. She was only a daughter. Now she became daughter-in-law, sister-in-law. And she has to take care of in-laws. Earlier, she was connected and related only to her parents. It means she entered a new life stage. All this is what is called rite of passage. Walking around fire with 7 steps, that also is a ritual. That also is a symbol. Marriage ceremony or a wedding has so many symbols. Tali is one symbol, do all kinds of things. There are so many symbols. So much of symbolism is there in marriage. Why does bride's father washes the feet of the bridegroom? Expressing, see, we trust you, we're helpless, you take care. I'm leaving my ego, I'm touching your feet now. I may be a big man, but now you are more important. That is a symbolic act. People cry, say bye. Again, deep emotions, symbolic acts. So, what does marriage ceremony include? Many symbols, activities, life stage transition, the rite of passage, and then members of the society know what to expect, what not to expect, what is called proper, what is not called proper. So much is conveyed simply with the statement that now I am married. And studying culture through these symbols is symbolism. Through symbols, coherence is provided to the culture. So, how different groups, different ideals, ideas, activities are coordinated, or how a conflict free or unambiguous communication is made possible. All that is studied and through the study of symbols. Symbol can be an activity, a ritual, or a practice, or simply one object. So through marriage, one can know the relationship between the groom side and the bride side, who is superior and who is not, what is expected, so much. Is it clear? Now take something like upanayanam. Who undergoes upanayanam? People in the first three varnas, Brahmin, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. They undergo a ceremony and then they wear a sacred thread. What does the thread mean? Superiority, varna. Okay, and the outsiders are expected to respect. And then he is no longer a boy, he is adult or adult. Okay, so that is a symbolic act again. So that is again one kind of a rite of passage. Rite of passage is a transition from one stage to another stage. It's about status change. Okay, so studying a society or culture through these symbols, symbolic acts, and rituals, trying to arrive at the coherence through interpreting them is a symbolism. You can call it symbolic approach, you can also call it interpretative approach because symbols have to be interpreted. Symbols by themselves have no meaning. Symbol is always symbol always has culturally assigned meaning. An anthropologist has to decipher the culturally assigned meaning to that particular symbol. Tali is not the same across the cultures. 7 steps around fire is not the same, which means members of the culture have specific meaning to that symbolic activity. And around that cultural activity is organized. So studying a culture, studying a society through symbols and see how various activities are organized, how conflict is managed, how coordination is done, is a symbolic approach. You can also call it an interpretative approach because symbols or to be interpreted. It can be a marriage, it can be upanayanam, it can be many other activities. So what Turner did was, Turner believed in Durkheim's approach of culture has coherence. So he wanted to study certain formal structures to see how that coherence is coming. Went to a particular society in Africa. Then he found it interesting to study the coherence through symbols. So that is how he became one of the pioneers in starting what is called symbolic approach to the study of society. Tell me, is this clear?
Sir, but can't it be possible that anything can be taken as symbol when it is not?
No, not anything can be taken as a symbol. How can we, for example, you are wearing specs. What does it symbolize? People think you are wearing specs to make your contribute to comfortable vision. That's all.
But
Doesn't.
it is for us that we know that it has some purpose. But what about someone who is not aware? What if he comes and he says that okay, some people are wearing, then it can be that they have some another, position in the society. Let's say, then what about that?
That is true. That is why symbols have to be interpreted. We don't know. So somebody from outside may think, see, look, all these people who have specs seem to be from upper class, and they have they behave in a particular way. And maybe those who want to behave like this are wearing specs. He can think like that. So that is why he has to ask informant and then find out what is common to people who are wearing specs. Is it symbolic, or is it not symbolic, or is it simply utilitarian or serving a material purpose? So then he'll find out, no, 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 it doesn't have any symbolic significance. It is only this. It is like that. Okay. For example, not all cloths are symbols, but a flag is a powerful symbol, isn't it? For example, college-going girl, take a college-going girl not wearing Bottu doesn't mean much. Okay, but a Hindu girl, but a Muslim girl going with a Bottu, what will that mean? People will notice, isn't it? Why is she doing that? Because Bottu is supposed to symbolize an identity, religious identity. Then why is a Muslim girl doing it? Isn't it? Or a Hindu girl wearing a scarf like this. People will find it amusing, isn't it? Because that is supposed to symbolize religious identity. Can a Hindu girl go out with burqa? Impossible, isn't it?
But then even if she
It's
goes,
not
no one know that she is
girl
Hindu.
can girls say that my friend is wearing, so I just like that I wore. Will that be accepted? No. But can she go out with modern dress or pants or something like that? That's fine. But burqa, no. So how will one know? These are symbols standing for certain serious things. Okay. Why veil has become an important issue in Europe? Others are saying don't veil, and Muslim women are saying right to veil. Why? Because to them they found it as a symbol of their cultural assertion. Others are seeing it as symbol of lack of freedom. But they are saying that how dare you impose your values on us and this is our culture. That's symbolic. So symbol is not about comfort, not utility point of view. It says something much more. So anthropology is trying to find out, trying to understand the culture through symbols, is trying to understand through interpretation. He cannot make out for himself. He will ask others, but doesn't mean he will go only by what one person says. He can go by what others are saying and his own idea. This is what is called emic and etic. Etic is anthropologist's view. Emic is native's view. Anthropologists may think that these people are doing these symbols under these contexts. That is etic view. What the informant says, what the members of the culture say, what the natives say, it is emic view. So, for example, Victor Turner wanted both emic and etic, but both are interpretative and interpretative of symbols. Symbol means interpretation. Symbol is different from sign. In sign, there is no interpretation. Sign is you just sign is like a word. For example, you have one word for a bottle. So each language has its own word for bottle. Like that, each language, each culture has its own signs. Sign is like a word, like a language. Sign is not something interpreted. Sign is simply clearly identified, whereas a symbol is interpretation. So study of culture through symbols is symbolic approach. A very important anthropologist who did this work is Victor Turner. So you can write about which society he wanted to study, how he wanted to apply Durkheim's theory, and what he learned in that society, and what are the words he used. Okay, I just gave Indian examples to make you understand. This is what symbolic approach to study of society. Tell me, is it idealism or materialism?
Idealism.
Idealism. It is not about techno-economic factors or ecological factors uh, causing certain aspects of the culture. No. So why something is emerging as a symbol under what technological economic conditions? That is different approach, materialism. But this is just about what is the meaning. So basically culture being read through symbolic activities, through symbols. Culture being read through symbols is symbolism. Okay.
So one more way can be that, let's say, societies want to differentiate themselves, and that's why they take the symbols.
You mean one society from another society?
So in the
That is
beginning, in
some
the
of
big,
them are some of them are symbols of identity. Some of them are identity. Burqa is identity. But tali now is an identity. Maybe at one time it was not an identity. Identity is in contrast to other groups. In contrast to other groups, identity. But within that group, they need communication in terms of who is married, who is not married. So tali, like that. So symbols help communication within and also outside. Flag is communication for within and also for outside. So symbols are a way to communicate, just like language. But language in this definition is nothing but signs or words. Okay. So this is what is meant by symbolism. Sweta, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, where do totems fall? So clans have some totem.
Totem is a symbol. Totem is a symbol of identity and for a group, and then it raises certain issues of worship, taboos, religion. All the religious symbols are symbols only. Cross is a symbol. Shiva is a symbol. Swastik is a symbol. Okay, religious texts are symbols. The significance is the symbol. God figures, images are symbols. They're all symbols. Everywhere we are dealing with symbols. But this computer is not a symbol. It is just serving a purpose. So culturally assigned meanings are symbols. Need to be.
Can you give some examples for signs?
Sign red, green, yellow, stop, go. That is a sign. Danger thing on a transmitter is a sign. Left, right is a sign. Okay. Sign. We just need to know what are those signs in the culture. Some signs may be universal, but signs are unambiguous. Signs are equivalent to words in a dictionary. You can just know, okay, this is what it stands for. That's all.
Sir, so signs are subset of symbols. Is it correct?
We need to think, okay, maybe like that. We'll work on it. Sure, sign is unambiguous, but symbol is something more. Maybe one can think like that. Okay. Next. So in this, pay attention to who is the one and where did he go? What did he do? What are the books? What are the examples? And what are the words? Okay. Liminal stage. And before the rite of passage and after interstructural. So there are certain words used and you can pay attention to them. Just let me take the book. Okay, is it clear?
So there is also a mention of status that one achieves after the so and it is written
Puberty ceremony, status change. Marriage ceremony, status change. And then he says, sometimes pilgrimages can bring about social change. Hajj ceremony, Hajj pilgrimage, status change. I gave an example of Ayyappa devotees. Okay, Ayyappa devotees wear a particular dress before going and during and after that. And they all think that they belong to a particular group. So much of cultural behavior is about what to call him, how to relate. For example, you can't abuse him. You should only call him Swami, and he is not supposed to take things like intoxicants. Okay. So through symbols, so much is being conveyed. And understanding symbols are very important. Okay. There is some completely ill-directed discussion on this Sabaramali issue. Why were women not allowed to the temple? I believe it is because men were supposed to practice brahmacharya, abstaining from sex. Only men were allowed because women are seen as a distraction. And according to the story, to the question, when will men be allowed? According to the story, as long as something like that. As long as unmarried people are coming or something like that, women will not be allowed. That is a story, I don't remember it. Essentially, that is to facilitate celibacy. But then, these people raise the issue of man-woman inequality. Whole thing, in my opinion, is just nonsense, misleading. There are temples exclusively for women and there are temples exclusively for men. It is in celibacy context. Ayyappa devotee is about celibacy. People are supposed to abstain from sex also for these days. Tell me, what are we
But
doing?
doesn't that depend?
What are we doing to promote control over passions in our culture? Tell me. Is there any idea? Is there any education? Unless, of course, you may write in an essay how control is needed, things like that. But is there any education in terms of control over passions? Then we talk about sexual violence. Where is any education regarding control over passions? Where is any education regarding our attitude towards sex? So traditionally, control over passions is one very important aspect of education, part of religion. Okay. So it's a part of celibacy. I don't think there's an issue of equality between men and women. That's meaningless. Basically, man is considered very vulnerable. So it is to recognize man's vulnerability that women are not allowed. It is not that woman is vulnerable, it is man is vulnerable. All these monasteries also are about man's vulnerability, not woman's vulnerability. Man has, we have discussed that, lot of sexual urge compared to women. So men are being protected from women. That is the way it is. So what is modern solution to passion control? I mean, what all people ask is that just punish, hang him, shoot him. How dare he does. That is the wrong approach. So some of them are institutions of culture to promote control over passions, control over sex, celibacy, things like that. We don't have. Okay. So it means that we fail to interpret the symbolism there. We interpreted it modern times in terms of equality. But that's not about equality, it's about vulnerability of man. Okay.
But can't men anyways go out and have it?
Man,
Anyways, how can women be the way we are seeing it right now? I mean, man really want to have it, they can have it anyways. So no one is,
that is
I mean,
true.
checking on individual
It's
men.
not that they are trying. For example, when you want to study, you don't want to be with distractions. So you want to keep away distractions and study. It's like that. Syllabus also is like that for some time. Freedom from passions for some time, where there is a company of only males. It's like that. Why do you have monasteries? Why do you have these orders? It is to facilitate, so that the whole place will not be a place for boy and girl to go around and then have fun. So basically, we don't have anything to do anything about how do we deal with sex. What is our attitude? We don't have that. So these are part of tradition. So it means we fail to interpret those symbols. We somehow missed the meaning.
Sir, in that temple or in that Ayyappa pilgrimage that people take, is there anywhere is it talked about this celibacy or control over passions?
Exactly. There is a story. I don't remember the story. The story asks that God, when will you allow woman?
Hmm.
He says that as long as some brahmachari is coming, I won't allow woman. So what is the meaning? And you can also see what an Ayyappa devotee does. He is supposed to abstain from not only these intoxicants and drugs and things like that, but also from sex. And which is a very powerful thing. So basically to experience control, to see what are the problems, so it is a kind of inner exploration, distraction-free inner exploration. Only Sadhguru said it is not an issue of equality. There are temples exclusively for women, and you can't say man is being discriminated against. So it is misleading. There is a story, I don't remember exactly. That is the answer given by him. When will you allow? He said, as long as these people are coming, I will not allow. That is the answer. So essentially, it is about celibacy. So which means we missed the symbolism. We failed to interpret. Okay. And then Victor talks about the symbolism of Gandhi and Tolstoy. Why Gandhi dressed that way? I took parallel from Ambedkar. Why Ambedkar dressed differently? Gandhi, Gandhi doesn't wear anything, and Ambedkar wears so much. He wears coat. Why? Both of them are involved in symbolism. Gandhi wants to say, I am poor. And Ambedkar wants to say, no, I don't dress the way Dalits dress. Because if Ambedkar dresses the way traditionally Dalits dresses, so he's not saying he is not like Dalit. So they're doing something opposite of what their class or caste is supposed to do. Baniyas are supposed to wear full, and Gandhi is not wearing anything. And Dalits are not allowed to wear full in many villages. And Ambedkar is wearing full. Okay. So through dress, they are trying to say something. Okay. Again, dress communicates something. This is another misleading debating dress. Dress is a matter of freedom and choice. That is true, but only partly true. Dress also communicates something. An officer has to dress in a particular way. Film star needs to dress in a particular way. Politician dresses in a particular way. Okay, dress communicates certain values. This is what I am. I mean, it may not communicate unambiguously, but it does communicate. It does communicate. Okay. So if you say that I'm just wearing because it is comfortable to me, it is not a good communication. Okay, it may be for comfort only, but you have to, that point has to be clear to others around. Okay. So much we do revolves around symbols.
And again, the dress example that you mentioned, the communication, doesn't it depend on the culture and the people around?
Precisely, that depends on the culture. Hillary Clinton going with what is that skirt is formal dress. If Sonia Gandhi goes with the dress, of course, people will say she is still Italian, isn't it? So, but to Hillary Clinton, people would say it is a formal dress. Yes, it is a formal dress to her. So we are dealing with symbols.
So recently I was looking at a video on YouTube by an Indian YouTuber. He had gone somewhere. He does vlogs and all. So he had gone somewhere in Cuba or someplace, and he was showing a video where people were at the beach. So they were wearing bikinis and all. So he was stating that I want to show their culture in its raw form. People here are not worried of wearing a bikini because people don't stare at them. It is very normal.
That's true.
But in India, when people wear bikinis, we have people staring at them. So it is not very, it communicates a different thing as compared to what it does there.
Communication. Communication is a result, a part of culture. Communication is never one-sided. You cannot say I'm wearing because this is what I believe. It is not like that. Dress communicates. And of course, you can communicate a radical thing. You are expecting me to do, and I defy. In fact, this, the jeans, people cut and then stitch. That was supposed to be a statement of rebellion. I'm not looking neat. So, this is faded and this is cut, and still I don't care about your opinion. That is rebellion, but that was rebellion at one time. But now what is happening? They carefully take the faded jean, they pay more for the faded, and they cut in a particular way. It's no longer a rebellion, it is a fashion, it is imitation. If one has to rebel now, take something which is regarded as formal and wear dirty. That is rebellion. So
these days, nudity is the rebellion.
Faded jean became a part of tradition. Doesn't represent rebellion. Otherwise, they are supposed to symbolize rebellion. So that is why communication changes. Communication changes. So what something symbolizes changes with culture. Something like Punjabi dress in North India is a normal dress, but Punjabi dress in a remote village in South India is an ultra fashion. And pant in a city, girl wearing a pant in a city is just normal, but same pant in a village, people look, wow. But if one wants to communicate, one can communicate, but one has to know that one is communicating. It is like that. So Gandhi wanted to communicate something and Ambedkar wanted to communicate the opposite. But both of them, remember, they are communicating. It is not comfort. Okay. So Gandhi was shocking people and Ambedkar was shocking people in a different way. So that's what symbolism is about.
So one more thing, from my observation, from my workplace, what I realized is the rich people, I mean, whoever have good earnings, they really don't care about the culture.
Not really. They want to save, they don't care. For example, going on a flight. Going on a flight shows that they may be wealthy, but they don't have to dress particularly well when they're going on flight. I mean, that's what I noticed. People dress very casually. Number one, never ever believe if somebody says, I don't care. No, it is not true. They may be caring so much, but they are making a statement. People are basically oriented towards others. There is no materialism. The more they say I'm materialist, more likely they are not. It is not true. But of course, some people may be more free in terms of dress and things like that, but it doesn't mean they are free in other ways. No. So we are all related and connected and trying to communicate variety of things. Even communication, I don't care, also is a communication. You will be offended if others think you care about them. So all kinds of communication, all kinds of twisted emotions are possible. What is important is to understand is we're truly social and we have to actually look in our inside to see how far we are independent. That is more important.
So one more thing about the vibe, I mean, I feel that, I mean, that's my interpretation that, you know, these people are like, they want to show that they know so much, but they really don't. I mean, so that is also an symbolic kind of thing.
All kinds of things are complicated. Sure. Next, Geertz. Geertz symbolism. Geertz symbolism as well as interpretative approach. What we did is Victor. Next, Geertz. What Geertz does is, Geertz takes a major event. Geertz takes a major event and interprets. Geertz approach is called interpretative approach. Okay, but both of them are related. In interpretative approach, one major event is taken, okay, which Geertz calls document or a case. Document or a case. One major event is taken. In his study, he took a cockfight, one major event. And then through the study of that major event, he tries to understand the larger society. That is the approach of Geertz. So, for example, he took cockfight. Who are the people? Owners. Owners of cocks. But then there are some experts called handlers. Handlers are actually involved in this fight. And then fighting. One thing is killed. And if it is killed, it is defeated. And the owner of the owner, the one who won it will take the cock. A lot of betting goes on in this. So he says that the owners and some people bet. And then when they bet along the groups within a village. So you bet on the cock of a group to which you belong. You don't bet against the cock of your own group. So there's how the betting is. And then major betting, minor betting. And then in the end, at the marginal, there are just gambling. So he's looking at hierarchy of the society in that cockfight, major, minor, gambling. And then the groups of the society, how the society is divided into groups and which group is betting on which side. And then he says, so there's a way of studying of factions within a village, hierarchy and power, and the fun, the structure, and the values of victory, shame. Okay. So through the cockfight, he is essentially trying to find out the nature of the society. For example, through Indian elections, we can try to find out the nature of democracy. Or a terrorist attack, how is the system responding? Political parties, issues, media. The whole nation is involved in this. Or a 9/11, how does American society react? So take one major event called a document and then go for what is called a thick description. Explain in such a way that the society is revealed. This is interpreted. Again, interpreted. The difference between interpretative approach and other approaches is that when we are saying interpretative, we mean this is what the cultural members of the culture, or members of the society think. Or the author is interpreting with the help of the members of the society. He is not trying to find out the objective laws about the society. Interpretative approach is essentially to make sense of culture, not to discover laws of culture, but to make sense of culture. Why are they doing what they are doing? What are the meanings of the activities? Why are they taking part in cockfight? What do they want? Okay, you can't apply American values and then say, what is all this? American values, Americans will engage in some baseball fight and things like that. And here it is cockfight. So, Americans can't bring their either values or their events to Balinese and then examine. You have to see among the Balinese what are the values, what is the meaning, what is the meaning of those events and how that event is organized. So this is how Geertz went about interpreting the culture. Document, thick description of a major case, and then that reveals the society. It can be society's fault lines, conflict zones, unity areas, whatever. So Geertz thinks it is a way of studying a culture. Culture is like a text. So studying the culture through these events. And these are all symbolic. So symbolism and interpretative are all interlinked. For example, studying a marriage. Victor studied some function, about one particular function around a tree. It is similar to marriage. So you can study an activity and then see what does it symbolize. So in that sense, symbolic, interpretative are close. Interpretation is symbolism. Symbolism is interpretative. Okay. But in Geertz's approach, he is taking a major event and through major event, studying the society. For example, what does COVID reveal? COVID reveals so much about the world, globalization, global governance, capitalism, health, human development, rich-poor differences, hospital. Okay. So, taking one major thing and looking at the culture through the interpretation. Okay. And Geertz says, for example, okay, you have taken this cockfight and you have particular understanding of Balinese society. But suppose you take some other event, like a festival. Will you get the same society? He says, no, not necessarily. Cockfight will give the conflict, but if you take some other event, it may bring something else. And some other event, completely different thing. So he thinks that anthropologists can study society through variety of events, which means variety of texts of culture is possible, which is closer to an idea called postmodernism. Postmodernism means variety of perspectives are possible, variety of texts are possible, variety of interpretations are possible, and there is no one single truth. That is postmodernism. So Geertz comes closer to postmodernism perspective also. So essentially, interpretation means it is about meaning given by the members, involves symbolism, and it is not trying to find out objective laws about the society. It is trying to make sense of the culture as if you were a participant. Make sense of culture. In fact, both come from one sociologist by name Max Weber. Weber said the purpose of sociology is to make meaning and not to discover laws. So cultural materialism is interested in laws, evolutionism laws, cultural ecology laws. But interpretative and symbolic approaches are not about laws. Just get a feel of what the members think of their society. That's how symbolic and interpretative approaches are different from what is called positivist approach. Positivism. Positivism means trying to find out laws of culture. Non-positivism is about not trying to find out laws of culture. So interpretative approach is about making sense of the world, making sense of culture. So this is how interpretative approach or symbolism is different from positivism. So these are called non-positivism. Non-positivism, making meaning. So this is how Geertz interpretative approach.
Sir, but interpretation can be wrong also.
Just one second. According to Geertz, let's take this question. How does cockfight reveal the aspects of Balinese culture? How does cockfight reveal aspects of Balinese culture? Concern for status, hierarchy, hierarchical arrangements, factional or divisions within a village, kin connections, values, status priority. And then rule making, tradition as a part, tradition include various rules was their part of tradition, umpiring, objectivity. And then you should be on the side of your kin group. And then if your village is participating against somebody's village, some other village, then you have to side the cock of your village, not that of another village. Okay. So this is how culture is represented. But does Geertz think that is the only account? No. So tell me, Sunil, you are saying, can interpretation be wrong? Yes, one tries to interpret, that's all. One may misunderstand. One may misunderstand. And also that interpretation that comes from one event may be different from the interpretation that comes from another event. There may not be anything like right or wrong also. There can be different views. There can be different views. So one anthropologist comes with one opinion and another anthropologist comes with a different view. So this is, last time you were asking, isn't cultural materialism the last word? No, this is not. This is different word. Cultural materialism try to arrive at laws, ecology, technology is giving rise to these features. Whereas interpretive approach says it is not like that. So much depends upon how you interpret the culture. And different interpretations are possible. Don't think you know the laws or there are laws. So for example, Mead found stress-free and somebody found it is stressful. Geertz would say, yes, they have different data and different events and both of them are true. So when somebody is saying both those views are true, then one is being a postmodernist. If one is trying to find out which one is true, that is not postmodern. So stress-free, yes, looked in certain way, they are stress-free, but looked in some other way, they are stressed. There are two perspectives. So there is no monopoly over the truth. That is postmodernism. Whereas Marvin Harris thinks that there can be laws and cultural features come from ecology, environment, and technology. And so even if the members do not know why they are what they are doing, an anthropologist can find out the truth. That is cultural materialism. That is Marxism. An anthropologist will know the final truth. But interpretative approach thinks no, there is, at least Geertz doesn't think it is like that. Whereas Turner thinks there can be one truth. But Geertz doesn't think so. But the person who doesn't think so comes closer to postmodernism. So Marvin Harris is definitely not postmodernist. Marvin Harris thinks that there are laws of culture and it is the purpose of anthropology to identify those laws. Whereas interpretative people think that, okay, it is not about the laws, but just get a meaning. Whereas postmodernists think there is no one meaning at all. It is your meaning. They don't think, for example, anthropologists are objective and natives are not. Natives are looking in one way, anthropologists are looking at. So do you understand how cultural materialism is not the last word?
I think till starting from classical evolution till cultural materialism, all the critics made them sure that they should come with something which is acceptable to all.
Exactly. That is true. Whereas postmodernists came to think that there is nothing like an acceptability. Marvin Harris finds this whole thing very irritating. So he found all these thinkers as fall of anthropological theory rather than rise of anthropological theory. So to him, anthropological theory rose and rose until it reached cultural materialism. And after that, it only fell. So these are all denial of loss, which is also called non-positivism. This is called non-positivism. Geertz represents non-positivism. Postmodernism is non-positivism.
This way, anything
thought moved towards non-positivism. It is because no longer the anthropologists were studying isolated and excluded societies. So at one time, anthropologists would go from London and then study one remote village and come back as an expert who can tell about that island. But now people are connected. People know so much, and there are nothing like isolated places. And the people themselves are talking about themselves. This is what we are. So it is difficult for anybody to be an expert on them when they are in a position to convey what they think they are. So anthropologist has an expertise quotient. And more importantly, now if one anthropologist goes and makes an observation and comes out within a few months, somebody else will go and come out with a different observation. Isn't it? So there is more questioning of what is theory and what is truth. So it is no longer an expert versus layman. It is about different perspectives. So till cultural materialism, in one way, people are trying to find out something that is objectively true. But non-positive is different in the sense that there is nothing like an objective truth. So symbolism and interpretative are a step in that direction towards postmodernism. Sweta, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Turner and Geertz, symbolic. You just write everything that you know about Turner and Geertz. That's all. Symbolism.
Sir, for this Balinese culture question, how do we frame the answer? We start with Geertz and then
Cockfight basic details and his observations, and finally Geertz's conclusion on the Balinese culture, that he did not think he found the key to Balinese culture, but it is only an aspect. Let me tell you, I don't know how many. You can just read things like symbolism, interpretative, and you can read any book. I don't think any book got anything of these things. You can say it's pretty difficult. Symbolism, interpretative, cognitive. I found it very difficult to read the original articles and summarize. It calls for a lot of skill. Okay. So in fact, the book has many things more than what you need for the examination. I'm just simplifying. I just gave the essence of Victor Turner, though the book has so many things about the Turner. So many quotations, years, books, phrases, concepts, so many things are there. Because the questions are very simple, I am only giving you basic outline, but making you understand. Is my point clear? So in those few pages, a lot more is there. I'm not covering all of them. Because even if you write all of them, they won't understand. It's unnecessary. So get the essence, but write in a lively way. That is more important. With contemporary examples and with simple language and preferably with diagrams. Think in terms of how to reach the examiner and never doubt yourself. You are much, much ahead of the exam. Much, much ahead. It is about how well you express yourself to the examiner. Let me tell you, that is a challenge in anthropological thought, the way we read. I'm not saying that is true in every area, not like that. In anthropological thought, it is so. Because these are very difficult. What is interpretation? People can't understand how interpretation is different from laws. What is all this? They think after all we are interpreting only. So only when you know the issues, debates, why thought developed the way it developed, why some people are angry about these issues, then you will know what is being discussed.
do we have any criticism for this, for these theories, these two theories?
We don't have, because we know, I said we don't have somebody equivalent to Marvin Harris after Marvin Harris died. But somebody like Marvin Harris would say, what is the objectivity about your theory? You are interpreting fine, but how do we know that is true? You have to finally explain how culture became what it became. That's how Marvin Harris would argue. I'm just giving Marvin Harris argument. And finally, for example, if you say Marvin Harris would say, okay, this can be said like that, this can be like, so then Marvin Harris would say, what is it finally? You may feel like one of them, but you are also an anthropologist. You have not gone there to become one of them. As an anthropologist, explain why they are living the way they are living. So we can critique from materialist point of view, because Marvin Harris, a materialist, would think you have to explain something. Explanation means predictability, means why things came the way they came.
Something like Levi-Strauss structuralism criticism.
The same thing like Levi-Strauss structuralism is worse because there are no structures. Levi-Strauss theory is too bad. I have not come across any theory which is as bad as Levi-Strauss. So ridiculous. But these are not like that. These are, but how would Geertz argue? Geertz would say that may be a worthy goal, but we can't do it. That may be a worthy goal to explain why it came like this, but we can't do it. So people think that they are explaining, are actually not explaining. So you can see these are perspectives on theory itself. What should theory be doing? Some people think basically these are two broad schools, positivism versus non-positivism. Positivists believe that you have to finally say something concrete. They have an idea of theory of culture closer to science. A theory of culture should say this is how culture evolves. This is the reason why they are doing. What are the laws? What are the correlations? I'm not saying positivism is materialism. Positivism is not materialism. Materialism is a particular kind that techno-economic factors influence. But positivism is about a particular way of looking at science. Science has to give laws, and the social sciences should follow science. That is positivism. But interpretative approach, Geertz doesn't think so. So non-positivists say that is not possible. You can't arrive at the laws. You just let them understand. The purpose is to understand. That is what Max Weber said. The purpose of sociology is interpretative understanding of social action. Interpretative understanding of social action means social action. By social action, he means individual action. When you read sociology, finally you should think, you should feel, okay, this is what they're doing. You should feel that. If an author makes you feel that, then sociology served its purpose. That is what Weber thought. Are you following? Definitely, Geertz makes you feel like that. You are part of that cockfight now, isn't it? I don't know if you are familiar with the cockfight in West Godavari or East Godavari districts. You can easily connect to this story. It's just like Godavari districts fight only. You feel okay. Now I understand. If you ask Geertz why did cockfight develop, he will say, I have no idea. Marvin Harris will say, if you have no idea, then what are you writing about? It is not a movie. So that is criticism to interpretative, symbolic, structuralist, all emic theories. Because positivist will say you should finally explain and predict. And then in the case of Geertz, he says it is a status bloodbath, and again he says that status is not changed. Then why do you say status bloodbath, and why don't you call everything no more than entertainment?
So this can be used to critically. So there is this previous question: critically examine critically the contributions of Victor and.
That's true. You can explain contribution and of course criticize. So you can criticize non-positivist from positivist point of view. So Marvin Harris criticism is general criticism, though he did not write on either of these two. I'm sure if he wrote, he would have written differently, because you know what he would do is he would look at the entire work and comment. Textbook writers are not able to do that. So what did I do? I was good enough to read one article and summarize. I couldn't read entire Geertz book or Victor Tali's book. Okay, just for one article. I read one article, one original article, and I summarized. That I was good enough for that. Whereas Marvin Harris would have read core books by Geertz and then comes out and then smashes it. That is a different skill altogether. So I wanted to find out whether anybody did something like that, but nobody. There are books, visions of culture there. Just like guides. I mean, they just dump some information. No independent thinking. No independent thinking. And they also don't have the subtlety of understanding a theory. That's another problem. That's another problem. So when I didn't have somebody to comment on, even my book got affected. For example, Snyder. I didn't come across any critical, comprehensive article. I only know one small article, so I just depended only on that. So we'll just go by what are the sources. Thought is abstract. Thought is abstract. So a person should have the ability to think abstract level, or he himself should be a thinker to understand the thinker, which is difficult. That is why textbooks are very poor. They just run through they just give through quotations and quotations and quotations, and in the end they say that man got this PhD, these many medals, he has so many students, he got so many awards, and that is a contribution. That's all. They can't independently judge a person. That's the problem. Okay. So from symbolic, interpretative, and cognitive, this is exclusively my work. I didn't pick up from others, and I had to read and do my own summary, which took a lot of time. Symbolic, interpretative, and cognitive. It was my own. And postmodernism in this also is my own.
So what are your thoughts on the University of Alabama link that people suggest for theories? There is criticism available for symbolic and interpretative.
I have no idea. I didn't go through. I have read some, but I didn't find. Let me tell you, this thought is not a group work. One individual has to understand everything and write in a holistic way. Okay. So what normally done is that one thinker is covered and all kinds of criticisms are added. This man said, that man said, this man said. And there is no coherence among what those people are saying. Okay. So I don't know about that. But we don't need, what we have done in this book is more than that. More than adequate. Much more than adequate. You just don't need. So they're asking extremely simple questions. So what you have is many times more than what you need. These questions are extremely simple. You don't need it all. Okay. I don't know about that university, but I did read 4 or 5 popular textbooks and I was disappointed. Just like biographical sketch and then their own terms. That's all. They're not in a position to say in their own words. They don't do that. I don't think you need to do. You spend your, if you have energy, you spend in other areas, but not here. What you have is many times more than what the exam requires. In fact, even in the class, you can notice I'm not covering everything in the book. So much is there in the book. I'm just taking only a few points and giving you with Indian examples. Okay. So you have a lot more. You just don't need anything more than this. Okay. Next, Schneider. S-C-H-N-E-I-D-E-R. Schneider. Schneider is a symbolic anthropologist. But his symbolism is far more radical. He, as an anthropologist, he did some work on one simple society, but he became famous not for that work on simple society, but for his book he wrote on American kinship. And he made one very unusual observation that even the word wife is only a symbol. Because wife in American context is not wife in some other context. So what does it mean? It means the most basic things have different cultural meanings. Whereas normally when they study marriage, they just say, okay, husband and wife is marriage. But Schneider comes and says that the husband there is different from husband here, wife there is different from wife here. So you can't apply the same category. Marriage there is different from marriage here. Then what are you talking about? Which means many things that we assume are universal are not universal. They are symbolic and specific to culture. Which means kinship study also is important in a complex society. So what does wife in America mean? What does wife in French society mean? Which means most common words have different meanings. For example, tali, we understood from Victor, tali has a different meaning to Hindus, which is not there for Americans. That is reasonable. But to say the word wife also has different meanings to different people. It means that entire culture is essentially symbolic and needs to be interpreted. You can't assume anything. That is what I understood, and that is a very important contribution. That's what I understood. And then he understood, he made one interesting observation. He said, in the context of American kinship, for example, in our context, mother's brother is always called mama, whether we are close to mama or not. Whereas in America, they decide, it seems, whether this relative is going to be close or not. Only when he is going to be close, then they will call with relative name, a relative, call him as a relative, uncle, otherwise name. So he says that is there in American kinship. That we haven't, others haven't thought of it. Okay. So he's saying that what we assume to be the basic and universal are culturally assigned entities. In fact, if you ask me, if you are willing to think beyond Schneider, I would say it is not simply the difference between one society and another society, but within a society, meanings are different. That's what communication is. You are saying something. My brother is so, I am hurt, and things like that. But somebody, the person who is listening to you is listening to something else. He interprets in his own way. Isn't it so? So that is why we need to be sensitive. We need to think that, I believe, if you ask me about communication, people think that the communication is, it is simply a matter of language and logic. It's not like that. Communication is communication of certain images. You use language and grammar to communicate. You communicate some images, and he will be receiving some other images. It is never one-to-one. In the light of his experience and emotions. I'm saying the same thing. Objectively, it is same, but what three of you will be listening will be differently. You will be visualizing different experiences, different processing, different levels of processing, different ways of understanding. You will be responding to your own memories. I believe one reason why I go for this kind of communication is that I am first asking you to say what you feel, so that I know what